emphasize why it's important to recognize genocides. The recognition of a genocide isn't just for the survivor community, because a community that survives, they need that as an element of healing and reconciliation to understand that, yes, you've suffered a genocide, you've suffered an injustice, and the first step towards healing is to acknowledge that, yes, you faced it. But the second piece, the second thing that's so important is that when we recognize a genocide against one community, we're actually fighting for the human rights of all communities. When we remember Holocaust, we are actually defending the rights of all people, because we remember the genocide, the inhumanity that occurred against one person. It reminds us that we can't let this ever happen again to anyone else. So any recognition of genocide is an act of humanity and justice for all people. And so this passing of the recognition in the province of Ontario just a couple of days ago was a big step forward for the Sikh community in terms of healing and reconciliation, acknowledging the harm suffered. But it also was a massive step forward for all communities to end any of this violence against any marginalized community. The reason why this term should be referred to as a genocide, because it's been called a riot, and a riot suggests two groups fought against each other, and we know that that's not the case. There was a Supreme Court judge who was commissioned with writing a report on what happened, and his writing said very clearly that what happened to the Sikhs could not have happened but for the planning and organization of elected officials, which is chilling if you think about that elected officials used voter lists to identify Sikh homes, and there was a very sensational use of violence. Okay, people weren't just killed, they were, kerosene was poured on their bodies and in their mouths, and they were lit afire, and their insides burned outwards. Just the graphic level of that violence, the sensationalism of that violence shows that it was something more than just, a spontaneous eruption of violence. It was something targeted to strike fear in the hearts of a minority community and to try to wipe that community out. And the wrong belief is that it was a Hindu versus Sikhs. This creates a division when we call it a riot, because it suggests Hindus fought Sikhs. That's a false notion. It's a false narrative. It never was a Hindu-Sikh fight. It was a government that tried to target a minority community for their own political aims, and that's the evidence that suggests it. So it's important to identify the real culprits as opposed to allowing the false narrative that it was a spontaneous violence between two communities. That is actually more healing when we acknowledge the true culprits, and that's what that genocide motion did. And sorry, I went on way too long now, I know. Folks here are really tired of standing. I apologize. And I'll leave it at that. I'm not even going to look back to see their faces because they're probably really angry at me right now. Should I look back? मैं पीछे देखा मेरे ते कूर के देख रहे हैं ना मैं माफ़ी मांगदा जी सारे मैं काफ़ी गल्लां सांझी करना चाਹੁंदा सीगा Sorry, I had to tell a lot of things. Okay, that's it. I'm done. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद एक बारी फिर वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह